Okay, awesome. Right. I think we're recording. So good morning, and welcome to Radio Northern Beaches 88.7 and 90.3 FM. I'm your host, Melissa, and these are the Hummingbird Talks, and we happen every Wednesday. So the aim of the show is to educate and inspire the everyday person about spirituality, health, and wellness. So each week I have different guests on speaking about a range of topics designed to inspire and facilitate a direction towards wholeness, happiness, and self awareness on this journey we call life. And Rhett, I ask this of all my questions. Ask this of all my guests. How's life going for you at the moment?
Life is always amazing for us. We've worked out some of the secrets to that. It's exactly what we're here to discuss for your listeners today.
Yeah.
Literally, how to live an optimal life and purpose, a life of purpose as well. So,
Yeah.
we literally walk the walk. We don't just talk the talk. We apply all the principles that are in the suite of books that I've created in the ROA products, which are the Rhett Ogston applications.
Yeah.
All of them are literally designed to assist people to get to that place faster.
Yeah, perfect. And look, that's what I like to hear because, in a way, and I know you've got the research and the information behind it, we are up in our game. So we do need to have some tools and techniques to help us through that. Rhett, I'm going to introduce you, and I know that you're 20 years in research science. You know, you've been a Chinese herbal medicine practitioner as well. There's so many factors under your belts or what you have as knowledge and references. How does someone introduce you so they can connect with who you are?
Great question. Well, firstly, I'm a father of three energetic young boys. That's pride of place in my life at the moment. I'm so
Yeah.
blessed to be a dad. I relish in it every moment. I have a beautiful partner who is a well-established and credentialed naturopath in her own right, and I have a wonderful team of people around me supporting me from, Anka, who's a wonderful dietitian, and George Dallas, who's a doctor of Chinese medicine, a doctor of naturopathy, a health promotion expert as well. So I've got this, really wonderful team of people around me, just living a blessed life at the moment. And the amount of research that I've done or qualifications that I've done just comes from the simple fact that I get bored very, very easily.
Yeah.
I like to understand everything.
Yeah.
I think the true beauty of life is when you can look at a plant, and I completed a Bachelor of Science with honours from Melbourne University.
Yeah.
Part of that was investigating and scientifically validating that Chinese herbal medicine does work.
Yeah.
And I did that in my honours year with a specialised project that I was invited to participate in. But part of that was studying botany. So I now know that I can look at a plant and remember and recall that the photons or the quanta from the photons of light stimulate the P450 cytochrome activity in a plant, and that's how it gets its energy. But I can still look at the leaf and think that it's an amazingly beautiful leaf. And in that, you have the duality to life that, we can come from that place and understand everything, still
Yeah.
admire all it is, that life becomes a ceaseless and unending experience of joy and love.
Love it. Great. Look, I've never had that kind of explanation or introduction into someone, so I think it's fabulous. And look, I want to talk to you about duality later on in the interview because I think it's going to be really relevant to your book. Because we're here to discuss your book, The Internal Warrior Smile. But you're also the creator of your own modality called the FlameTree. So we'll be talking a little bit about that, but firstly, you said that you're a father of three of energetic boys. I have to put that in. You've got a beautiful wife, so you have a loving family. How did you get into this? Like, you started off as a scientist, but now you're on the level of, hey, there's got to be science and conscious thinking. So how did that kind of merge together?
That comes back from growing up in regional Victoria, a small country
Yeah.
town. What I observed, just, it was literally right in front of you, was quite often you would see the children literally replicating their parents. They had the same viewpoints, the same belief systems, and you could see their life really squaring up to become exactly what their parents had lived.
Yeah.
Even to the point where one that sat with me was midway through my science degree. I had to go back to one of my hometowns. I talk about two. I grew up in Seymour predominantly, and then Kilmore later.
Yeah.
And on the way through, I had to meet someone, and they said, we'll meet at the pub where we all used to go. And I went down there, and they were sitting on the exact same bar stool that the dad had sat on. And it was pretty horrific because they were sitting there, so they looked exactly like their dad. They were saying the same things their dad used to say, complaining about the same issues their dad complained about. And we knew all this because, as kids, we used to knock about together, and I knew their dad quite well. And I actually got to the point where I said, hey, how come your dad's not here? It's knock off time. It's beer o'clock. Normally they're here. Well, 2 years ago, they died from coronary heart failure and liver disease.
Yeah.
So, when you see people repeating these, negative and deleterious patterns to their health and their life, the instinctive drive of me observing this was, how can we assist people to transform themselves? Not blame them, not come down on them hard, not give them tough love, but just say, hey, look, when you're ready, there's a pathway. And, to make it as simple and easy as possible so that it's not hard. And that way people are naturally and instinctively drawn toward that. So whenever someone's ready to transform their life, and I can give you one really amazing story that we received probably a few years ago now, but just with the Promemo essences, which are a synergistic blend of the 5 major modalities. Again, the 15 years of research and development in the making, integrating everything from science, Chinese herbal medicine, Western herbal medicine, homeopathic medicine, flower essences, and bioenergetic medicine, putting them into one product. And a young lady flew from Queensland to Victoria to come into the clinic to see me. And they'd said, look, I have an issue. I don't want to tell you what it is. Is there something, because I can't take you back in my pocket to Queensland with me. Do you have something I could take? And I said, yes, we've just, completed these essences, take these. About 3 weeks later, I got a text message that said, look, if this keeps working the way it is, I'm going to write you a hell of a testimonial. About 3 or 4 weeks on from that, I got a testimonial, and I did not know this about this person, but they had admitted that they'd been addicted to ice for 18 years, and using the essences, they'd come off that.
Wow.
And, that was so humbling and touching and inspiring. And it gave us this hope. And, to explain that, we went and did a lot of research on it. We found Gabriel Mate, who's a world leading expert in addiction psychology. And, one of the videos that we found was him saying, look, when someone first turns up to my addiction clinic, I don't ask them why the addiction. I ask them why the emotional pain. And that makes sense. We have a product that helps you process emotions. And then once the emotions are processed, they didn't need the substance. So, it's this whole new paradigm that we've created. And again, getting results from real life, albeit subjective because it's the person's experience. We're getting these real life stories coming back where people are validating that these techniques and applications work. So again, let's make it super simple, super easy. If you've got someone suffering, all the common maladies of the emotional disturbances that are occurring in society right now, Victorians are going back to their life after lockdown and currently reporting huge levels of anxiety. So, there's other techniques and applications that you can use that get you back to your life faster and easier than ever before. That makes total sense to us because when we're talking about consciousness and duality, well, we're all intimately connected. Energetically, that's been validated by science, whether you look at the entanglement theory from particles or electrons. You can have one electron on the opposite side of the Danube River and you make a change in that electron, it stimulates the other electron on the other side of the Danube River. That's non-locality in action. If we accept that as true, which, if we believe in science, then we do, that means that we're all intimately connected. We absolutely must want the best for each other. And that's exactly what my life has been leading towards. And that's the creation of the products and the applications we've got.
And look, I think that awareness, like not many people have that awareness that we do take on behaviors that are learned behaviors that can be, I don't want to say easily undone, but in some ways, yes, easily undone. And you've got, a product that actually helps to unlearn behaviors and really deal with the emotional pain. If I can ask an honest question, just being that you have been in practice for so long and you're, working with clients that are seeing amazing results, it's our emotional trauma that keeps us from that consciousness. So why is it that we just don't want to deal with these emotional traumas and rather go into addiction per se than dealing with these emotional traumas?
That is a fantastic question, and that's
Yeah.
exactly one of those questions that led me down that rabbit hole. And essentially, we have a technique that we teach in the Eternal Warrior Smile, and what we delve into there is called the emotionally charged memory technique. And
Yeah.
this
Okay.
explains quite simply, if you think of an egg, when you crack an egg open, you have the yolk and the white.
Mm,
Well, if the yolk was the memory and the white was the emotion, you need to separate them out, because what will happen is your brain and your body is naturally designed to say, look, if I go recall the memory of a picnic, but in that picnic was when my spouse broke up with me,
yeah.
you're not going to want to recall that memory, because it's the egg white is around the yolk and it's going to make you feel that emotion. And no one wants to feel bad.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins has talked about this for decades: pleasure versus pain. You
Yeah.
know, they are part of the decision making factors that guide your life. But if you can look at the emotion and say, what is it around the story that you're trying to recall in terms of your memories? Well, that gets hardwired into us. And we know this because that's via neuroplasticity. And I've had the absolute pleasure of sitting and talking at length with Dr. Norman Doidge, who is the international best-selling author of The Brain That Changes Itself, because
Mm,
we shared a client in the Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital at least a decade or so ago now.
yeah.
And having conversations with him about how the brain does and has the ability to literally change itself is
Mm,
phenomenal. But it's what you allow it to change too. And that's, again, we explain in the Eternal Warrior, what we're talking about here is the bioelectric signals and cues that you literally are ascribing to and allowing to permeate your consciousness, which will dictate what you wire up in your brain. So do I want to feel bad, or do I want to reach for something that's going to numb the feeling?
yeah.
One's easier. And again, we made that a super easy choice, because you can either reach for something in a canister and, have a low frequency experience such as alcohol or, a substance, or you can reach for something like the Promomo Essences or the Eternal Warrior, read the book, get the knowledge, apply the knowledge in the real world, and have the result that you need, where you change that belief and you separate the emotion from the memories, and therefore you don't need the support of something else.
Yeah. And look, if I can ask you, because you were so right, like you've just really helped explain, not explain, but at another level to the work that I do with kinesiology and healing. And it's all based around the emotion, because I say half the healing is in the awareness and the awareness of what's going on. So you've really explained how the emotion really affects us as a whole. And like you said, our memories. So it just makes the work that any healer or any person, practitioner, any person working with someone to see them on the other side, really explained it to on another level, and really made us realize how important that is. If I can ask you, let's get into the internal warrior, because the internal warrior smile, because the way that you explained it to me, and you've explained it now, is that it's a step-by-step process in a way, and it's clearly laid out there as a step-by-step process. Now, when I was going from through depression, I was probably looking for something like that, in a way that I didn't know where to start. I knew I had to change. I knew what I was going through wasn't my life. It wasn't, it was just an experience, rather, if I can label it. But I was kind of looking for a magic or a silver bullet to come in and change my life. Um, how, like, start off with the eternal warrior, how does it change someone's life, and what is that step-by-step process?
Yeah, great question again. Look, the whether it's depression or anxiety or any other type of emotional issue, we've covered emotions in depth now.
Yeah.
FlameTree also, one of the great advantages of writing the book from this place was FlameTree actually acknowledges that there is 8 frequencies to the human body. Emotions is only
Mm,
one. So if people are still working on just the mind, the body, and the spirit, they're missing 5 eighths. Even if they incorporate emotional as a frequency, they're still missing 4 eighths. So they're only working with 50% of the picture. So
yeah.
we're absolutely passionate and advocating that people really do learn FlameTree, because it fills in all the missing gaps. So
Yeah.
that's the first part to it, was whether it's a physical issue, you want to address the physical. If it's an emotional issue, you want to address the emotion.
Yeah.
If it's a spiritual issue, you need to address the spiritual. FlameTree is unique in that it's the first and only currently existing fractal medicine. And what that means is we can address the energetics of the thoughts that generate the emotion. So
Yeah.
it's a whole new paradigm. It's a game changer. And, you know, for any healers out there who are doing any light work at all, then definitely, you know, please reach out, get in touch with Gabby and myself for FlameTree.
Yeah.
All of that knowledge got integrated into the Eternal Warrior. So even with depression, we start off with right in the introduction, because we've got so much valuable content in there for any person.
Yeah.
Literally, the first thing is the awakening process. So we're talking about consciousness again. How do you awaken yourself to realize that if you're feeling something such as a symptom, in your case, depression, that symptom, the second that you realize that it's a disempowering symptom that you're feeling, or a message from your innate saying, this is taking away our power, it does not feel good, then you need to go through the 4 steps of the awakening process. And I'm more than happy to share those with your listeners if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I want you to do.
Awesome. Yeah, glad to do that. Firstly, just got to realize that if you're feeling something is disempowering, then you've been conned, you've been lied to. There is something occurring, because that is not the natural state. I know there are people out there who will argue that the natural state of human beings is misery because they're meant to be wired for that. I disagree entirely. Left to our own devices, where we can find our deficiency needs, as Maslow reported them. We belong to a group. We've got our needs met. You know, we're more than happy. And the natural evolution is toward self-actualization and self-transcendence. So we know that that is our natural state. So anything that takes you away from that is you've been conned and you've been duped. Now, the second you realize that first step, the appropriate emotion to feel is anger. And anger, unfortunately, in our society gets a bad rap because everyone thinks about the unhealthy expression of anger. So you can have someone who is a champion sports athlete. They get to take the energy that they feel, that anger that they feel, that desire, that passion, because they want to get out there and, you know, let's take, we've just had the grand final, the AFL grand final in Australia. Let's take it from the point of view that that person uses that anger to get the ball. They want the ball. They're using the anger as drive and motivation. That's why they're a champion. What happens when they quit the sport and they don't have that healthy outlet for that anger anymore? That's when we start to see the destructive behaviors creep in. So we're not talking about the destructive nature of anger. We're talking about the healthy expression of anger. You know, another healthy expression of anger was after the Holocaust. You know, the Jewish people came out and said, that's it. We've had it up to here. That is never happening again. That's a healthy expression of anger. You know, when women or men in a domestic violence relationship say, you know what, that's the last time you lay a finger on me, that is a healthy expression of anger. And it's that anger that they use as drive and motivation to facilitate a change. So that change is then, you've got to look back at your life and say, if you're in a place where you're feeling these things and you're buying into the disempowerment, you've forgotten your purpose. So the third step is go back, rediscover your purpose. And the purpose is the thing that will get you up every morning, out of bed, full of energy, driven to make a change, because your purpose is yours and yours alone. There is no one else here that can do it. And again, coming back to the quantum physics of life, we are all intimately connected. That means that, you know, for my children to have the best possible future, I need you to do whatever it is that you're here to do in the best possible way, because indirectly, somewhere down the track, they will coincide. And a really easy example, you know, using the 6 degrees of separation would be one of your listeners is listening today. They pick up the book, they read it, they transform their life, they teach their children that. And 20 years from now, you know, that child might be a surgeon. And that surgeon is the person who'll operate on an accident. And the person that was in the accident might be my son's best friend. Right. So in that connection, that's how the universe really, truly works. So if you know your purpose, you're going to get where you're going. And of course, the fourth element, the fourth step is just being flexible. So when you know your purpose, you're not going to get distracted. You just have to know, say, I'm heading to point A. And if I get swept off to point B, that's okay, because I can come back to point A later.
Yeah. Perfect. Sorry, I got so many questions that I wanted to ask you just from you explaining that, because I think you're purely right in the fact that, you know, there's no negative emotions. It's just the unhealthy expression of it. So anger is here for a reason. I don't want to use the word fear, but, you know, fear or grief is there for a reason, because it helps drive change. And you use some really good examples. So did you say that was the first step, is just realizing the emotion behind what you're going through?
First step, realize if it's disempowering, if there is anything in your world that disempowers you, then you've got to realize that you're getting conned. There is a reason that someone wants you to believe that, or a reason that someone put that belief in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So and I think the best way to ask you this is, What does it feel like to actually be empowered? Because I want to get to purpose in just a second, but what does it feel like to be empowered?
Amazing, firstly, but even more than beyond empowerment is enlightenment, and this is where everything for me keeps heading back to. It's certainly the theme throughout the suite of books. In the Golden Ring, we actually talk about consciousness in depth and how you're in tune with the infinite and can actually participate. Even in the Eternal Warrior, we teach you the law of creation, how you can create and speak into existence anything that you truly want. So it's empowerment is literally knowing that you're here for a reason and acting in unison with that reason. And there's a whole bunch of scientific explanation behind this that we definitely will not have the time to go into now. But anytime that you are literally living and breathing your purpose, that comes from a place of empowerment. And every word that I've chosen to speak, coming back to Professor Richard Hawking's book, Power versus Force, if you're trying to force someone into a position of understanding, then that's a very low frequency interaction. If you come from a place of power where you speak truth, and the highest frequency is enlightenment. So I made a deliberate and conscious choice years or decades ago now. The only words that will pass my lips are ones coming from a place of enlightenment. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't talk. When I know what I'm talking about and I've had it tested and I've shared it with people before, and again, even all the words in the book have been tried and tested with decades in the clinic. So I've taught this and shared this with all of my clients. And it was at the advice of the clients where they were saying, look, you've transformed my life. You've worked miracles here, that you've turned my life around 180 degrees or 360 degrees in some cases when it was a complete flip out for the person, but it went in the right direction in the end. They've said, look, you've got to reach more people. You need to have more of an impact. Is there a way you can do that? And the solution was to write The Eternal Warrior's Smile.
Yeah, perfect. And look, to have someone turn a 180 degrees in what they do, like, you must be doing something right with, both the FlameTree method and this book, The Eternal Warrior Smile. You've mentioned purpose quite a bit. And I know in the spirituality industry or the health and wellness space, purpose gets thrown around, or having a purpose gets thrown around like it's just another rock or another leaf or that sort of thing. So sometimes I get frustrated when people say, oh, live out your purpose, live out your purpose. But most of the time people don't know what their purpose is. And when they're in the health and wellness space, they think, okay, purpose is I have to be this yoga teacher, or I have to be a healer, or I have to be so forth. But it's not always the case. So when you talk about purpose, what does that actually mean for you and for the people that you work with?
Yeah, great question. And the one example that jumps immediately to my mind, we had a client who came in, they started taking the essences, they were receiving FlameTree, they wanted to know the Eternal Warrior. We hadn't published it yet, so we're speaking it through a little bit with them. Their key thing was they turned around and they said, look, I know my purpose in life. My purpose, my mum told me I have to start an area or buy a house. I'm in corporate. I've got massive amounts of money. They were just shy of making 500,000 a year in whatever job they were doing. I didn't investigate too much because the job and the money weren't the issue in the session. But what they were saying was that their mum had said, you've got to help, the sex workers in Victoria. There's an area in St Kilda known as Grey Street. It's the key area where the ladies of the evening tend to gather. And her intention was, I'm going to go and buy a property there. I'm going to set it up like a getaway for them. They can come in, have coffees, teas, have some food there, have some beds so they can get some proper sleep, make sure it's nice and secure because they'll feel safe. And she was prepared to invest, sizable chunk of money because properties in the area are, millions of dollars. And she wanted to buy a house, not a unit. So she was basically heading down his track as her purpose. And FlameTree just kept stepping her through that. And again, FlameTree never tells you what to do. It just clears the issues for you. So it turns the unhealthy bioelectric signals and cues into healthy ones. When we change the biofield of the cell, then the cell changes. Again, scientifically proven and validated. You want a healthy cell at negative 70 millivolts. That's what we're all about. And then you get the physical changes that come with that. And for this client, after it was approximately 9 or 10 sessions, they turned around and they said, you know what? That makes no sense. Like, I am so grateful that I've come to see you because that is not my purpose. That was my mum's purpose and she didn't do it. For me to do it, if I went and did that, I realized I don't have the qualifications in counseling. I don't know what's really going on with people on the street. I've never been into substance abuse. I'd be the wrong person for the wrong job. I'd probably make things worse. Looking at it now, if I bought a property, it'd probably, people would realize there's no one in there, or they would start turning tricks in there, or there could be drug use, or there could be violence. I'm going to end up with a trashed property, and it's probably going to cost me more money than I really want to expend on it. You know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to take at least $50,000 of my paycheck every year, and I'm donating that to a charity that does this exact type of work.
Yeah.
And that was amazing, because then their purpose was to actually continue with their corporate job and continue to pay that money for this charity, which I know the charity is absolutely blown away by such a generous donation. And,
Yeah.
the amount of information that's flowing back to the person making the donations is, here's what your charitable donation does. And they're achieving more with that than they've ever achieved before. So
Yeah.
her purpose is staying in that corporate job, and she's literally funding all of these different charities now who can do more work than she ever could. And her purpose, interestingly enough, was spending time with her family.
Oh,
Now, it's not their direct nuclear family, it's actually one of their siblings' families, but they are the best person or the best relative, like best aunt in the world to those children.
yeah.
And right now for them, everything, Victoria obviously lockdowns, but now they're looking to move closer, and it's really shoring up and harmonizing that family, which sounds amazing in its own right. But then you find out things like one of the children actually has special needs. So it makes sense. They need that extra love and support.
Mm.
If they had have gone and done this other, purpose that their mum was actually meant to do, then they wouldn't be there to lend that support to their family and to the children. So
Yeah. Look, I think you just sharing that story just kind of made me well up inside, because it it's just so clear that when you think from a rational, healthy mind, you're making better informed decisions, and better informed decisions that are aligned with who you are. And the clear fact that you said purpose can be, especially for this person, was spending time with family, actually just puts things into perspective. There's all the money, riches, things we can do in this life, but sometimes just spending time with family is exactly what we need. So, oh my God, if that story is amazing, that person probably needs a show on her own just to really go through that. And I thank you so much for sharing that. So with the clear, intention of getting people to realize their purpose, the other thing that you said was flexibility. Not a lot of us have flexibility, and I kind of want to talk about it through my perspective, and maybe you can answer it as well. Being that when we start doing this work, the unraveling of, pain, traumas, emotional, healing that we need to do, we kind of step into a space of fear, like, oh my God, we can't have it happen again. Because if if it happens again, I'm not like, oh, I don't know how I'll respond. Or the last time that it happened, it's going to be the same again. But I'm starting to realize that the more and more you do the healing work, like what you just said with that person, the more empowering it is. So you're starting to feel more like yourself. You're starting to feel whole, that these interactions or whatever comes your way, you're going to be able to manage it with a rational mind. Is that what flexibility is? Being able to handle any situation in front of you without losing your power? Or what do you mean by flexibility there?
yeah, flexibility is all of that. It is literally the physical flexibility in your body, being able to bend down and touch your toes. If you can't do that, it's because the default neural pathways operating your body haven't been stretched enough as well. So there's
Yeah.
mental flexibility, which is more what you were speaking about there, which is absolutely true. With FlameTree, part of the architectural masterpiece that it is using fractals, it's also a priority-based system. So we get to avoid people shifting into that fear, because it's a seamless and effective healing, because your innate wisdom will only ever raise what you're ready to deal with. And therefore it gives you, in psychology, it's spoken about as the scaffolding, the support networks that you need to be able to process a significant trauma, whether that be emotional or sexual or mental, whatever it is. If you've got that support network and scaffolding within you, then you can move to the next level of that trauma and bypass it. So because it's a priority-based system, it says, look, if you're ready to handle this, we can go there and we can process it for you. So we avoid people dropping into fear,
Yeah.
which is fantastic, because we've had, I actually teach FlameTree as well. That's one of the key functions where we've been focusing on. It's actually our 10-year anniversary. So
Well done.
we've been teaching people for
Congratulations.
10 years.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman called, and he recounts an amazing session that he performed for a female client of his who had the traumatic experience of rape. And with FlameTree within our protocol, there is a section called questions. Now, when a question comes up, it's not for us to answer and it's not for the client to answer. It's, again, transforming the unhealthy bioelectric signaling cue of that question to a healthy one. And the question at the end of it was, do you feel that you deserve to be raped? And the client answered, not at George's direction, but they answered because they thought they were meant to. And they said yes. And interestingly enough, in the very next session, the same question came up again, and the client actually thought about it and, sat there at the end of the session and said, "Yeah, actually, you know what? No."
Yeah.
And that was like one session turnaround. And you can think, like, just the fact that they could release something so horrifically traumatic for someone in one session is phenomenal. So there's no triggering of the fear, there's no triggering of the trauma, no dropping back into anything. And it is the rapid shift, again, shifting the default neurology and allowing the person to be flexible enough in their own mindset to come back and say, you know what, I've been looking at this one thing, and every time I look at it, my brain says, yes, you were, or it takes me to that one spot. This is actually allowing them to say, well, flexibility, where on the spectrum, we were talking at the start about duality, which we said we'll go more into. In duality, were you responsible? No. Were you responsible? Yes. And everywhere in between is different. So, possibly, maybe, definitely, all of those different options are available on the spectrum. So the flexibility is to say, where on there would you like to sit today? And again, we know the innate wisdom of your body will always lead you to the most positive outcome. Going back to a great example of the innate wisdom was, I believe it was Dale Carnegie when he did tours of the US. He put 2 envelopes underneath the seat, and he would say to people, take the envelopes out, hold it in front of you, and notice what your body does. And people would hold envelope A, and their body would push away from envelope A. Then they would put B there, and their body would go toward B. He'd say, now open them up, and they'd open the first one, it would be rat poison, and they'd open the second one, it would be vitamin C. So your innate wisdom knows, and it guides you towards things that are healthy for you at all times. So flexibility is saying, how am I going to feel about this? Is fear the appropriate emotional response for this, yes or no? That flexibility allows you then to gauge what's going on, and it keeps you living your purpose. Because as we said at the start, you can move slightly away from your purpose, be flexible about that, and then come back to it later on and achieve a better result.
Yeah, perfect. And I think that's what most people are starting to realize, that there's not one way of doing things, or you're not going to feel a certain way every day, day in, day out. You can't.
Yeah, and it's unique to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, are you of the belief that, because what runs through my mind, and I think we touched on it before, was that, this, you can feel empowered, but we also do have those negative emotions as well. Or sorry, I shouldn't say negative emotions, but the emotions of anger, fear, and grief. So are you of the belief that it's, I don't know how to word it in the way that you can feel empowered and feel enlightened, but you might not feel like that all the time, and that's okay. Am I kind of right in saying that? Is that where duality comes from? The fact that we can lean into both?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sitting here being blown away. I'm just thinking how fortunate your listeners are to have you hosting these shows with the depth of knowledge that you're presenting as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, I'll just recount a personal tale. I'm from an ethnic background, and my grandmother was my world. And I had like you wouldn't describe her as a typical cool grandma, but I can remember being a very young man and sitting up at a holiday property that she had that I'd been repairing and renovating for her. Even only 14 years of age, and having life conversations about marriage, and the fact that she'd only ever known one man for her entire life, and she was so fortunate and she wasn't getting remarried, and guiding me and offering me advice like that in terms of my life. And just the fact that she would take the time. We were talking about, people talk about the generation gap. Well, I was very fortunate there wasn't one, because I could talk to her about anything. And she passed away a few years ago now, and it's I was going to the respite center and sitting with her one night out of every week. My aunties were doing the rest. So, we're there right to the end. We were doing FlameTree, and this amazing session happened for at the end where she wanted to be out in the rose garden, not in her room, and we actually got permission to take her out. And it was really funny that one of the last things that she said through her innate wisdom FlameTree session was, the comment was, "I think you're all crazy," and she actually became conscious for a moment, sat up and said, "I was just thinking that," and everyone kind of stood there and we were completely blown away.
Yeah.
And we got to have this really beautiful farewell. It didn't make it any easier, of course, when she passed. Just massive amounts of grief, and even still being empowered and enlightened. I remember I went to the gym that day. I was like, you know what, I haven't trained in so long because I've been doing the nightly stays. I need to get back to work on my physicality. And I can remember literally picking up, where I trained 22.5s as our standard weight, and we went to do some lunges, and I got 5 lunges in where I can only do 20 or 30. And even the trainer said, "There's something wrong with you today, mate. Put the weights down, go lighter." So I went to 15s, and I still couldn't do it. And they said, "Look, just put them down, just do body weight." And again, I did 5, and they were like, "I've never seen you like this." And I said, "You know what? I literally do not have the physical strength to do this." Now, obviously I had the physical strength. It was the emotion that was disempowering the physical.
Yeah.
And the absolute proof of this was, I went to the car, I grabbed my 7 of the Promomo essences out. I took Relief, which is the essence that processes grief, and I was able to go back in and do some form of exercise. It probably wasn't the optimal exercise, but it was optimal at that time. Just because we're coming from an enlightened place, it doesn't mean that we don't feel emotions. They're our guidance system. We're absolutely meant to feel them. Grief was announcing to me, something that you really, truly value is not there. The energetics of it are, but the physicality isn't. You can't go sit and have a conversation with that person anymore.
Yeah.
And the appropriate, you would not say to someone, if they've lost a loved one, you wouldn't say, "Well, it's time to stop grieving now, move on."
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. We know that we have to allow the person, the intimate time to process what that other person meant to them. So we can be enlightened and we can feel. Enlightened people do not feel angry. They feel angry. It's what they do with it that allows them to process it, so they don't stay stuck in the emotion. And that's what the essences do. That's what the ECM technique and the Eternal Warrior teaches people to do. We want you to shift through emotion as quickly as possible so that you're back ready for whatever comes next, which is then being flexible to life and being able to respond.
Yeah, perfect. Look, look, I've got my grandmother up in heaven too, so I know that grief that you are talking about it. And I think a lot of people miss out on that experience of really relating and connecting with the older generation, because it does help with our, I don't know, it enlightens us more. It opens up communication, and it opens up to compassion as well. So just before we go on, because we've got a few minutes left, and I know that we could actually be talking for hours. So I just want to mention, we've mentioned some really serious topics in this show. So one of the sponsors of Radio Northern Beaches is Lifeline. So if anyone's been triggered by by the things that we are speaking about and need someone to reach out to, please give a call to Lifeline. Their number is 13 11 14, or you can go to lifeline.org to reach out and connect with someone. So, or at least connect with a friend or your support network if you are feeling triggered by it. If you're on the other scale and you love what Lifeline do, I know that making meditation mainstream, one of the groups, one of the people I interviewed a few weeks ago, they were just doing a fundraiser for Lifeline. I don't know the figure, but they were in the 20,000s. Of making that donation to Lifeline. It costs $28 to take a call from Lifeline. So if you can make a donation in some way, please do. That's not a community announcement, that's coming from me, but if you can please do. But the number
do amazing work, and we've just come through the coronavirus here, and I do remember hearing a report that said that Lifeline had been absolutely swamped and they were literally overwhelmed. So, as a Victorian, for my fellow Victorians, absolutely, if there is ever, even returning to life, as we said, the reports of people feeling anxiety and fearful about returning to normal life, absolutely make the call. That's what they're there for. They do amazing work. Pretty much, I do believe that in even a lot of our posts that we put out, we usually put their contact details on the bottom as well. So yeah, if anything is triggering you and you need that support, make the call.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that because $28 is like 4 cups of coffee. So if you can go like, or, however many cups of coffees it is. I don't know
Yeah.
what kind of coffee people buy these days, but, just put the money to some good use. So Lifeline 13 11 14, or go to lifeline.org. Let's get back to you, Rhett, because we're going to talk about duality. I know we just briefly spoke about it. And in a way, I felt in my life that I've always lived in duality. So there's this physical realm, there's the spiritual realm. There's, like yourself, I'm from an ethnic background. So being Lebanese, but not quite fitting into that Australian culture, that kind of duality. Um, what are we meaning by duality in the way of consciousness? I think, yeah, let's start there. What do we mean by duality in the way of consciousness? I know you can answer that question.
Absolutely. And again, if we need to come back and talk to you again, I'm more than happy to do that, because these are not short topics that we can just,
No.
I will do my best to give you the précis answer, but they are quite in-depth subject matter. But
Yeah.
consciousness, really, I mean, it's a funny story. I did 2 internships in China
Yeah.
related to Chinese medicine, and there was another girl there who came from Ireland, and we met on a very similar tangent in life, and we spoke about consciousness quite often. And I said to her, well, I've written a healing system that's based in consciousness. Now, how would you describe that? And she said, well, consciousness is. And that was it. And I thought, that's absolutely true, because the issue is, once we try and break down what something is, then we've entered into duality. So in FlameTree, we call the first element that we go into is beginning.
Yeah.
And beginning is everything. It's all belief systems, all thoughts, all consciousnesses, all the emotions, everything, but completely undifferentiated. To say, before anyone took an axe to it and cut it up, that is what it is. And the second that we decide that we have to make sense of the universe or everything that exists, I mean, if I said to you, do you want to meet? And you said yes,
Mm.
and we left it at that, we'd never meet probably.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of useful to be able to say, let's meet Wednesday, the 26th at 11 o'clock. Then, we've chunked down and we've made that a lot more precise.
Yeah.
So duality is literally then saying, out of everything that exists, I have to give something a label. And using the most basic label, if you use something like hot or cold or good or bad, right? So if you say something is hot, now your definition of hot, if you're talking about like hot water, your definition of hot, if you jump in the shower, you might put your shower onto it to hot for you, and I might have the shower after you, and I would get in and go, oh my goodness, this is lava,
Yeah.
right? Why are you trying to burn me? And you'd say, what? It's hot. It's not boiling hot. Or
Yeah.
other people might even say it's just warm. That's literally duality in action, where we have the polar extreme of cold, the other polar extreme of hot, and in between we have everything else. In English language, we have such a verbose language. You have tepid and lukewarm, and you can go
Yeah.
through all of that spectrum, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Where on that spectrum do you fit? And then how do we impart that to the other person?
Yeah.
So if you ask me for something, again, buy me a gift that's expensive, Rhett. Absolutely. Now, I might go buy you a gift that's, let's say it's a luxury car, and you would say, I said expensive, not crazy,
Yeah.
right? That would be a difference. And without knowing your definition of duality or where you're placing yourself on the spectrum, then I'm not going to understand you.
Yeah.
So duality encompasses all of what exists. And it's also where we start to get ourselves into a bit of a sticky wicket, because the second we give rise to one thing, we have to give rise to its polar opposite. So
Yeah.
good, bad, hot, cold, black,
Yeah.
white. If you're talking
Yeah.
about politics at the moment, right, left, everything we do this is divisive. And it's actually
Yeah.
the opposite of what we should be doing. And the reason is, we know that if I said to you, are you a good person or a bad person?
Yeah.
And whenever we use the test, everyone will say, well, I'm a good person. And what that means is we take good and we champion good, and we say, I'm a good person. We've got to hold that up here. But that means you have to repress bad. So if someone's telling you you're bad, you've got to fight that off and repress that too. And you can see automatically right now, my physical body is under tension.
Yeah.
So even if it's a mental polarity, your mind is under tension. Mind's under tension, don't make the best decisions. Plus, it takes energy, and therefore we're exhausting ourselves all the time by having this internal fight where one is good and one is bad. So
Yeah.
easily put duality is to say, well, if it's the opposite sides of the same coin, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm bad, and it's the opposite side of the same coin.
Yeah.
At some point, someone might say you're good, and other times they might say you're bad. So, example, I've got 2 dogs. Love the dogs. They're cute. They're fluffy. They're great with the boys. Now, if the dog goes to run across the street because one of the boys has dropped a leash, I might really quickly turn around, being a good person, and grab the dog so that they don't run across the road and don't get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up in the country. Dogs are grabbed by the scruff of the neck, like their mums pick them up. Now, if I grab that puppy by the scruff of the neck, someone else on the street might go, "God, you're a bad man." I can see their point of view. They might see that as cruelty to animals. I would see it as trying to save my animal's life.
Yeah.
But in that context, in that moment, depending on the observer, I could be both good and bad.
Yeah.
The trick is, do you want to get stuck in that mindset or fight the tension related to those two opposite polarities? Or can you accept both? And if we can accept both, that comes back to our flexibility, because we're flexible enough to accept both. And therefore, we don't have the charge. When we don't have a charge, less tension, better communication in our body, and everything just flows better, allowing us to find our purpose more.
Yeah, perfect. Like, you can't add to that because it's explained perfectly, and that's what a lot of people are dealing with. They're dealing with that duality, like straight away when you're explaining that. Once you have something good, straight away the bad comes up. It always tends to happen when you have got a big decision to make, whether you buy a dog or you don't, because God, dogs are beautiful, they're fun, they're playful. But at the same token, you got that flip side of the maintenance and caring for them, and being able to take them everywhere and things like that. Obviously, we're just using a lower example, but that duality is explained, because so what you're saying is, once we start accepting both, that there is going to be good, there is going to be bad in everything that we do, then we'll start losing tension and start, being more empowered. So it goes back to that question, what that feeling of empowerment is, isn't it? Like, once we lose that charge, you're saying, well, you're going to step into empowerment and realize that you're okay. That's pretty much.
So in FlameTree terminology, we transfer the, if you're thinking bad as a negative, because sometimes people talk about being bad as good,
Yeah.
What's the song? Someone was the baddest mother in town. That's meant to
Oh.
be a positive. So it depends. Or, when kids were growing up in the 90s, something was sick.
Yeah.
Meant it was good.
Yes.
Every
right.
adult heard,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's sick," and they were like, "What's wrong?" So language patterns come into it as well. But it is literally, if we take something that for the individual, and that's, again, FlameTree is unique because it approaches the individual. The system adapts itself to the person, not the person to the system. So if you had the belief that being bad meant bad, then we would be able to, as per the directions from your innate wisdom, transform that bioelectric signal and cue from an unhealthy one to a healthy one. And therefore, in the context we're talking about, you no longer see yourself as that bad, as the bad person.
Yeah.
That means that you're then free from that tension. Your meridians flow better, your chakras operate better, your mindset works better, the blood flow to your brain is better. You're not living in your amygdala from fear of being a bad person. Therefore, you're making better informed conscious decisions, because the frontal lobe of the brain is related to planning and organization. So you can plan out your days, you can work out who you are as a person better, and the list just goes on and on and on. So we're literally talking about optimizing you in every way, shape, and form. And that's, again, coming back to the book, that's what it's there for. Like you said, it is a map. It maps it out. So go through the awakening process, realize what's actually occurring. Fear is used to control and dominate. Chapter 5, we teach you how to eliminate fear. FlameTree does it via the emotional frequency, with the techniques that we teach in the course, or we perform for people. And literally, it just goes through step by step. It removes all the worrying aspects of life, because that's what the book is about, taking someone from being a warrior to being a warrior. That's going to get extended in the second book, which is from full to overflowing, because once you realize that you can get what you want via the law of creation, the natural instinct is to want more, and that's normal, and that's okay. The third book, we actually take a big introduction into health, in terms of a healthcare system. We investigate what's broken, what's not working. We touch on the ever-present topic of vaccines, and we demonstrate a possible solution to the problems that we have that no one else is really thinking about. And then the final book will be The Golden Ring, which is all about advanced consciousness and how you can use that to integrate everything about who you are with the universe so you do become your optimal self, living optimally and purposefully.
Yeah, amazing. So it's not just one book. The Eternal Warrior Smile is the start of a whole suite of those 4 chapters. And like I said at the beginning, it like this kind of puts it step-by-step process of what's actually what people can start doing to change their life. So it's absolutely amazing. I've got a couple minutes left, and we didn't get a chance to actually really speak about FlameTree and those 8 frequencies. Like you said, most people are aware of 4 of them, or maybe 7. But there's actually 8 frequencies. So let's leave that for another topic or another show, if I can say, because I'm intrigued because I do know about the 4. I don't know about the 8. Quickly run through what a FlameTree session looks like, because we've mentioned it quite a bit and people are curious. Like, you're using electrofeedback, you're helping change thoughts, change addiction, you're helping someone find their purpose. How does the session actually work?
So it's been described by some of the clients as enlightenment for dummies.
Okay.
It's kind of like the lazy man's way to get ahead. You literally, you book the session, you come in, you'll generally lay on a massage table. You can do it seated in a chair. The FlameTree healer or certified healer, they'll sit beside you and they establish what we call the myocyte tendon reflex response.
Yeah.
It's different to muscle testing. It is a bit more precise because it involves the muscle and the tendon. It is a reflex that's hardwired into the neurology, so it's already present in all people. And the response is it will demonstrate really clearly whether it's a yes or a no.
Yeah.
The unique aspect of FlameTree is we take the protocol and the procedure. Again, we can go into fractal generated protocols, and there can be first, second, thirds, fourths, fifths ad infinitum. So it continually goes on. It allows us to get to the root cause of what's occurring for the person. So you're testing on the person's wrist, their body, their innate wisdom is answering yes or no. In the protocol, we actually use single words because, if someone asked a question like, should you be taking vitamin C supplements? And they push down as a typical kinesiology response, it's always uncertain whether it was the vitamin C or taking, because they should be taking, possibly they need to take something, and the body might be testing the taking, not necessarily the vitamin C.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the skill of the kinesiologist in that aspect to drill down on those questions.
Yeah.
FlameTree removes us from that because pretty much every word on what we test is a single word. So when we get a yes on that, we know that's exactly what we're looking for. And we'll step through detail, yes, anatomy, yes, until we find out exactly what it is. So if it's a specific event that we need to identify, we get taken through events and we drill down till we find the event. We also have other unique features. There's concept neurons in the brain. Concept was written into FlameTree before the discovery of concept neurons was actually announced. When they announced it, I found it, hilariously funny that once again, we're proven to be across the board well before anyone else got there. We have a history of doing that, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
We do have consciousness of things. So, the consciousness of the heart could be for loving. It could be heartbreak for someone who's going through the ending of a relationship. We don't know. The system adapts itself to the person. There's the function of what's occurring. So the function of the solar plexus chakra could be empowerment. And we have the universe in a box, which we call tonics. So the entire universe can come into your session. And because of the architecture, the healer can actually really quickly establish what that is. The other part that's amazing is, let's say it was a traumatic experience that you're ready to process that you didn't want me to know. It comes up with the experience, then says details no. Your innate knows what to do to process it. I don't have to know. I just help you facilitate that healing for yourself. So you're laying on the table. We're just, gently pulling your arm. It's getting yes or no's coming back to us. Say a knee gets raised as a body part. You, as the client, it's your body. You're comfortable touching your body. You will touch your knee to remind the body that there's something going on there. The healer will put one hand over your head. That is where the brain and the mind reside, obviously. So that's making the change. There is a whole bunch more detail to this, but essentially making the change. We hold the heart because Heart Math Institute has demonstrated that the heart field or the heart bioelectric field is the largest in the body, and that stores the changes. So each and every session that we do is cumulative. So the results stack upon each other. So normally by 10 sessions, people have pretty much achieved approximately 80% of whatever it is that they came in wanting to achieve, including, the previously unthought of things like discovering their purpose or healing from symptoms that their body had, whatever it is, or leaving behind a personal development issue that was restricting them in life.
Yeah.
It depends on the person. It depends on what they came in for. Sometimes people even come in and don't tell us what they're there for, and we still get amazing results for them. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Look,
that's what it looks like. It's relaxing. It's quite gentle. You're laying down. Someone's touching your wrist. You hold points on your body. They hold your head and the heart. And then at the end of it, you're done and you walk out optimized, living your purpose, more in flow than you've ever been before.
yeah, perfect. Look, well, it sounds amazing and it sounds like what most people need as well. So, how do people find you? Because we've had a fantastic look, I've had a fantastic interview. I'm not sure if you're feeling the same, but
Absolutely.
it's been
We'd
a
love to come back and keep talking to you more.
I know, and I feel like we could do that for hours. But we're just about to wrap up. So on the show, we were talking about the internal warrior smile. We were talking about the FlameTree method and how the book actually came from the FlameTree method. You've helped many people turn their life around. There is that 4-step process that is explained in the book, and I got 1 and 4. No, in the explanation 2 and 3 are in there, so people are just going to have to watch this back and get 2 and 3. Rhett, how do people find you? How can people get in contact with you? Either get the book, book in for a session, or even talk about, or get the essences as well. So, how do people find you?
Yeah, everything is available at rhettogston.com. So www.rhettogston.com. That's the website where you can find a lot of the information. If you're looking for FlameTree, there is also the www.theflametreesystem.com.
Yeah.
There are 2 books out there on FlameTree that I've authored for people to understand it better, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 2 goes a lot more in depth, obviously, and produces things like people's case history reports and laboratory tests, where we demonstrate that the changes that we've had have actually been scientifically and biomedically validated. So that's a great way to get information. They can always contact us. We've got a phone number up there, the email's up there. So if people want to know more, definitely reach out. If we're all about educating people, you can tell we're more than happy to sit here and have we know that your audience is interested in it. They're our type of people. We know the people that we are talking to. They're people who want to have a better life, that are seeking the optimal experience with their purpose. I mean, it's our tagline for all of the Rhett Ogston applications, the ROAs, which is live optimally, live purposefully. So that's what we're about. That's what we like helping people to do. So we thank you for letting us talk to your audience. I'd love to come back and talk to you more, but the book, it's on booktopia.com.au. It's on Amazon. A lot of the details, if people go find me on the Facebook page or the Rhett Ogston Applications Facebook page, there's numerous posts up there with links in it that they can also access that through.
Yeah, perfect. Well, hopefully people do get in touch with you because it sounds like we need it. So it's rhettogston.com. So that's RHETTOGSTON.com. No AU, just.com. So all of his books, because you've written many books, they're all on the website. You can find him on Facebook. I've actually seen you on YouTube. You've got a few videos out there too. So guys, make sure you reach out. Rhett, thank you so much for being here with me. I really do appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the conversation as well. And I'm more than happy to have you back as well. So
pleasure. I look forward to it. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, perfect. So guys, you're listening to Melissa on Radio Northern Beaches 88.7 and 90.3. These are the Hummingbird Talks, where we do talk about spirituality, health, and wellness. Next week, Rhett, I've actually got your wife on, Gabby, and we're going to be talking about naturopathy and your essences that you guys have created. And so we're going to go more in depth in that. So look, it's bye for now, but thank you so much once again, Rhett, for being here with me.
You're more than welcome, and I will be tuning in next week.
Thanks, Rhett. Bye.
Pleasure, Mel. Bye-bye.
Bye.